teacher Andrew. He's been an absolute pioneer on the whole issue of cannabis and cannabis law reform in Australia for years. The other pioneer, which I'm a real fan of, is Tony Bower, who's coming up here. Tony, you mostly all heard of Tony. He's coming from the other end of the spectrum, and they're both totally valid, I reckon. He is the bush healer, and he's worked it out for himself. Really appreciate him coming today.
G'day. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tony Bower from Otherwise Medical Cannabis. I currently look after a couple of hundred families in Australia, people with anything from brain tumours, different cancers, a lot of autism, Dravet syndromes, about 150 families currently with them sorts of illnesses, Dravet syndromes and that mainly, where kids seizure until they die, basically. So what I make is a non-psychotropic cannabinoid tincture. It's made from THCA. I might sit down, sorry. It's made from THCA. I specially bred a plant that is really high in THC, but because of all the other cannabinoids I knew about at the time, and what we knew about the cannabinoids at the time, I tried to breed them up in the highest amount without actually losing any, so that what we had was a basic plant with everything in it, about an equal amount. But you can't really say that because there's no way of knowing. Once one gets too high, it'll stop producing another one, or it'll start reducing the levels of other ones. You can lift the levels of different cannabinoids in different breeds up very high, but to get an even level was what I'd done for the medicine. But basically, to try and get something through the government where we had an exact standard where we could run through TJ. My growing methods never change. The plant never changes. My extraction methods never change. And we have had them tested, and that there are very low amounts of THC in very, very low amounts of micro actually. But it depends on, I do several extractions. So by saying that is in low amounts, it is in one. It is in very low amounts. In another one, it is in a little bit higher amounts. There's still very low amounts to what food standards or anything else is that's anywhere in the world, but for Australia. We're well below any food standards with THC, psychoactive THC. We're probably above food standards with non-psychoactive or THCA or acid. There hasn't been a lot of research into THCA. Back when I started in 2000, what I understood was that back then we knew that 2% was THC and 98% was THCA. We have never had CBDs here, so it's a myth about it breeding out. It's actually caused by heat and UV light that makes the plant go to THC or CBD. They will come up in even amounts with some breed if it's grown under the right conditions. The CBDs are usually grown under fibre conditions or in a real cold climate. Is where, if you have a look overseas where they talk about CBD, if you have a look outside from where they grow them, pardon me, it's snowing, it's frozen, the ground's all cold. This is why they're getting CBD. It's the same as in Tasmania, New Zealand, and in different places you can grow it. Now, by growing fibre plants, I'll keep explaining regardless of this, by growing fibre plants, you're growing them very close together, which creates a climate underneath the plant. So you have this cool climate and you have the sun that is stopped from getting in at the plant. You separate these plants up, the sun can get at them. So therefore you'll end up with less CBDs. The reason they don't is because of the core climate rising from under the method of growing, and the sun, it's stopped. It's a blanket effect. So you have CBDs produced underneath, THC on top. People don't realise that. They think that this has all happened in the same thing. And it doesn't, because when I go, if you go and give a bud to a scientist, he will extract that bud and he'll tell you what's in it. He will not extract the top half and the bottom half separately. So he can't tell you what's in there. And even with CBDs, we still have a 96% THC rate. Now, 96% of this, we've been told that THC does this, does that. It does. No doubt. People try and tell us CBD does this, does that, but they always say you have to have THC. Well, if you have to have THC, but I do not have to have CBD, am I just adding a glass of water to what I need? Should I just use the low amounts of THC? That's what I use. I get the best results of anybody in the world. So I think that in itself shows, and if you work out, like I said, nobody says that you can do this with CBD. They always say you have to have THC. Now, if I only work with low amounts of THC, and if you're working with CBD and you are working with low amounts of THC, what's the difference here? Have you added water? To me, calculations sound like you've added water. You haven't added a valuable item here to it. It's too hard to get into the body. CBD, very hard to get in as smoking it. The smoke itself is thicker, much harder to get into the system, so it doesn't allow it to be used in high amounts. And CBDs are all telling you, and the thing here is that CBD were pushed by drug companies. They weren't pushed by us. They were pushed by the drug companies. We've had tests done here in Australia. Nobody's ever found CBDs in what we smoke. Nobody. It's never been found. So to say that we need something when it's never been found here, or to say it's been bred out when that's not even how it's caused in the plant. It's not caused by breeding. It's caused by the growing condition of your plant. So you can't breed something out if you continuously grow the same way. That's why they stay up in different amounts. High THC, again, people don't understand that when you have a smoke, you actually only take on these tiny little amounts. You don't take on a great big amount. Sorry, I'm probably blocked from people around here, I'll know that. You actually only take on very small amounts. Your body rejects 90% in some cases of everything that's taken on. So what we're actually taking on is very, very small amounts of THC to do what's, for people to get stoned or recreational smokers, because it's rejected. And it's the same whether we take it orally or whatever. We have a massive rejection in what we do. So it's better to take these in lower amounts than build these amounts up to stop the rejection. And we're not wasting it, because if you use a method like Rick Simpson's, like Andrew said, there's something like only 10% of that gets into your body. Now you've wasted 90%. Now if you used a pound of dope, you have just wasted a lot. And for what reason? when it's necessary, you want it in your body. So if you break that back down to something that's not as strong, and now allow that into your body, now your body can process it. It can do what it's needed, and it can make it into what's necessary for your body. But you have to build them amounts up. You don't start up here and come down. Oh, I've never heard of that. You know, when you think about it, it's a silly way to start. You know, if you start up here, we've got no idea what's happening, how it's happening. If you fall asleep on me and you don't wake up for 2 days, how am I going to know is that helping you? I need to get some feedback all the time. So that person must be aware of their surroundings, what's happening, so that you can get feedback and you can build them levels up to where now the body's taken as much as it can. You can wait 3 or 4 days, it will then take on more. But you have to wait for them to get to them levels before you lift any more. Because what you're going to do is waste it high amount straight away and give you a massive rejection. And then in some cases, they have a real hard time taking on any THC or from an exterior source after that because of the high dose straight away. It just needs to be into your body in lower doses. You know, our drug companies, a lot of the science is coming out now. The doctors or the science is coming out now will tell you that the drugs that we have now will work, but we're using them 100 times too strong. You know, a low dose response is exactly the same as a high dose response. There is no difference. A high dose response will last longer. So if you're having something for cancer or for other things, the low dose response will give you exactly the same response at the start. But it won't last there. The high dose response will last longer. And a low dose response should always be used before high dose. So you should always use a low dose before you have a high dose, because that then prepares your body for the next dose. And that's what cannabis does. And it does protect your cells. It has a protective value in itself. So if you can protect yourself through a low dose from a high dose, it's the same as if somebody's trying to poison you with strychnine. You take a little bit, it makes it harder for them to kill you with the strychnine, because you get this response against the toxins and the poison. And THC works exactly the same. It gives you this low dose response to make you aware of the high dose, or makes your body more able to take on a high dose. I really don't know what else I can talk about, but if anybody wants to ask me anything, well.
Just because we're moving on time a bit, anyone got some questions for Tony? Then David Stevens is going to show us the film. Then I thought there's a couple more patients here, but Tony, stay here, and we'll just get questions from people. Is a question?
Just one question on that last point here. So with the genetics, what you're saying is with RSO, Rick Simpson oil, where you would start with 1 or 2 grains of rice type oil and then work that up. Instead, you're working in a lower concentrate that you ought to take more of so that you can then absorb it and then process it the same way you would with the RSO.
Yeah, what I do with that method would actually be mix it with some hemp seed oil. That'll break it back down, and it'll actually allow it to get into the body a lot better too, because of the hemp seed oil. But don't use any heat at all. When I say mix it back in, never use heat, unless you are just trying to make something psychoactive. But heat will destroy any good product in any oil whatsoever. Doesn't matter what it is. Heat will destroy it. So.
What question?
Hi. Good, how are you? Can I just ask a question, because I'm not quite sure how, you talk about CBD and THC balances and things like that.
Yeah.
If you were to buy it off the street from a dealer, is there
There will be no CBD.
There will be zero CBD.
No CBD.
And what about the THC?
Well, the THC level in Australia is around between 1% depending, but between about 1 and 3%, the same as anywhere in the world. 4% being pretty strong on what's known, and it's pretty rare to get 4%.
Okay, thank you.
We've got such a problem not being able to analyse and test things in Australia. So there's this new amazing machine you can buy called an MXDY analyzer. You heard about it, BJ? So they're $600. We ordered one from America. We got it a few weeks ago, and we started testing all the different weed, and 20% THC, 22% THC. We're thinking, fantastic weed. Then I went and got the worst bit of weed I could find, still made 20% THC. So then we went and got some mugwort. You know mugwort, it's a totally other herb, 26% THC. Awesome. So it's a real problem not being able to test things properly. We need legally to be able to do it.
Most tests, the American government comes out and they test cannabis all around the world about every 3 to 5 years, just to make sure of what levels are out there. Now, the last thing that just come out from the American government showed that we still have the strongest dope here in Australia, followed by Africa. America, they have one breed, I think it comes up around 6% on what's known, but mainly most cannabis everywhere. If you're only testing for psychoactive THC, a lot of tests, and like Michael's saying with this thing, they actually gather all the cannabinoids. And then they tell you the amount of all the cannabinoids, not the amount of psychoactive. The amount of psychoactive, you have to use a gastronometer test. The ones they use now can't even be compared. Like the police just put out a paper here in New South Wales a while ago saying that the average cannabis here was 17% now. That was a different test that was gathering different cannabinoids and then adding all them together and then saying now we have 17%. When the psychoactive level was tested, it was still only 1 or 2, 3%. No different.
David and Deja. David's going to come up now with Deja maybe. And we'll thank Tony Bower here. So you just come back. David's going to show us a short film.